though. I did have my little clicker in hand, and I was just like wanting to click it so bad.
You are a agent of chaos, Danielle. I always just delete those immediately when I start editing.
I am sure you do. There's another one. Sorry. That was accidental.
Hello, and welcome to Book Retorts. I'm Sam.
I'm Danielle.
And this is the podcast about sharing your weird media finds with your friends.
Yay.
Yay, you're so happy to be here, aren't you, Danielle?
I am very enthusiastic today, Sam.
You should be, Danielle, because guess what? It's
What?
time.
It's time for...
It's time. It's
What?
time for the piece of media that could arguably have been the one that started this whole endeavor.
That weird black and white movie that we watched when we were like 16?
No, that didn't quite get us to here. I'm talking a little bit later than that, Danielle.
Yeah, I don't remember anything past that point, Sam.
Really? You don't remember the 1989 Dan Simmons book, Hyperion?
No, not that well, to be honest.
Good, which is why I'm doing it now. So just to provide the proper context,
Oh my
I was reading
gosh.
this book I only apologize. I was reading this quadrilogy maybe a decade or so ago, and I was telling you about it, and that's when we had the idea that maybe us telling each other about this stuff might be interesting to other people. I still think the jury's out on that, but here we are.
We have a very loyal fan base. It's fine.
So I figured it's time to bring this one in, and it's been something I've been dreading because not only is this book massively complicated and just absolutely bananas.
It's nonsensical. It didn't make sense then. It's certainly not going to make sense now.
It is crazy. I find it very interesting. I enjoy it, but it is absolutely crazy flakes.
Was that the last time you read it? Was when we talked about it?
Yeah, it's been a while, so I'm coming to it fresh as well. Well, less fresh than you, but that's always the case. So to make this epic piece of 4 very large books fit into our podcast, we're going to do something a little bit different, I think.
Okay.
I'm not going to do all 20 parts in a row. That's just insanity. So we're going to stick to our normal schedule of every other week. I'll just be doing Hyperion every other week until it's done, or I have to take a break.
Okay. Sounds good. You're gonna be over it. You're going to be like 2/3 of the way through and you're like, okay, I need a break. Everybody's going to be like, wait, what happens?
I need to do some dumb animated movie from the 70s and then get back to Hyperion.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah,
this will either draw listeners in or throw them all away. It was nice knowing all of you.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm hoping we do it every other week so that if they don't like what I'm doing, at least they'll have a respite every other week with what you're doing.
But if you don't like what I normally do and usually like what Sam does, we're sorry.
To be fair, Danielle, this is like the most quintessentially Sam book I would do on this podcast.
Absolutely.
If you like what I do in general, you're going to love this.
All right. Let's get to this. Let's see how much I remember, which the answer is literally nothing.
So I'm going to, again, preface this as I usually do by saying I'm going to be breezing through all of the really deep prose and backs. Like, there's a lot of world building in this story that I simply will not have time for, and a lot of really detailed and intense descriptions that I will not do justice to. So in lieu of starting this out with a short description, Danielle, which would not do very much for either of us, I figured I'd have you read the first couple of paragraphs from the prologue of the book, just to introduce everybody to the style of this book, and because I think it'd be funny.
Okay, let's do it. Can't believe how much you talked about this book and how little I remember it.
I do, Danielle. You remember very little of what I tell you.
That's not true. I remember a lot of the normal things. I do not remember the in-depth analysis of everything you've ever read or seen.
And yeah, here we are doing this for a podcast. And to be fair, I don't remember much of what you tell me about the media you watch either, so it's a fair thing.
All right. The hegemony? Hegemony? Really? That's like one of those words I've seen but not actually heard.
I mean, I could be wrong. There are a lot of words in this book, Danielle, I'm going to get wrong. There's a lot of like Latin-based stuff and weird So hegemony is my best guess. Our listeners will correct us, I'm sure.
That's true. The hegemony.
Oh, gosh. Hegemony. The hegemony. Or hegemony. Sure, go for hegemony.
The hegemony consul sat on the balcony of his ebony spaceship and played Rachmaninoff's prelude in C-sharp minor on an ancient but well-maintained sineway, while great green saurian things surged and bellowed in the swamps below. A thunderstorm was brewing to the north. Bruised black clouds silhouetted a forest of giant gymnosperms. Gymnosperms?
Yeah, Danielle, I want to stop right here to say, this is literally your first introduction to this book when you start reading it. It's amazing. It's amazing.
While stratocumulus towered 9 kilometers high in a violent sky, lightning rippled along the horizon. Closer to the ship, occasional vague reptilian shapes would blunder into the interdiction field, cry out, and then crash away through indigo mists. The Consul concentrated on a difficult section of the prelude and ignored the approach of storm and nightfall. The flatline receiver chimed.
No. Try that word again.
The flatline receiver chimed?
It's not flatline.
Oh, the fat line.
Yeah! Welcome to this book with all its weird science fiction jargon. I love it.
Fat line receiver chimed. The Consul stopped, fingers hovering above the keyboard, and listened. Thunder rumbled through the heavy air. From the direction of the Gymnosperm, that is a terrible word. You thought khui was bad from Ice Planet Barbarians?
This is an actual, biological term, not some made-up gross word. I'm going to put that up there.
It's still, a real gross word. It's somehow worse.
I mean, that's fair. I can't argue with that.
From the direction of the Gymnosperm forest, there came the mournful ululation.
This book. This is why I love this book a lot. It's really kind of fun.
Ululation of a carrion breed pack. Somewhere in the darkness below, a small-brained beast I like how small-brained, that's the description the author went with. The small-brained beast trumpeted its answering challenge and fell quiet. The interdiction field added its sonic undertones to the sudden silence. The fat line chimed again. Damn, said the Consul, and went to answer it.
So, Danielle, what do you think of your first introduction to Hyperion?
It gives you a really good idea of... It's very evoking of an image, I guess I would say, and color scheme.
Yeah, no, this book has a lot, like I said, of really good atmosphere and detailed descriptions, which I will breeze past because we don't got time for that.
Yeah.
But I wanted our audience to have that taste just to get a sense of what this book is like, because it's very dreamlike in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is the introduction to Hyperion. I will proceed from there with our prologue. So the Consul, he goes to play this transmission, and it's a husky woman's voice who informs him, "You have been chosen to return to Hyperion." He calls it a fatline squirt, which I think is great.
That's even grosser.
I know. It's so good. Apparently, this fatline squirt came from Tau Ceti Center, the administrative world of the Hegemony, and the Consul knew the sender was Meina Gladstone, the CEO and commander-in-chief. She goes on to say that he's been chosen to go to Hyperion on a Shrike pilgrimage, along with 6 others selected by the Church of the Shrike and confirmed by the All-Thing. What is the Church of the Shrike or the All-Thing, Danielle? I don't know. We'll find out maybe this book, maybe another one. Who knows?
Shrike, like Shrike?
Shrike, like the bird, yeah.
Okay. Like the bird. Oh, okay. Like the shrike bird. I'm sorry. The commonly well-known shrike bird.
Oh, they're all right. What up there? Shrike birds are awesome. They basically will impale insects on barbed wire or cacti or things and then eat them later. They're vicious. It's great.
Yes, I'm not sure they're as commonly well known as you think they are, Sam.
To be fair, I did not know of them until I read this book and looked it up because Shrike, man, what a thing.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah. So anyway, confirmed by the All-Thing, and that there's evidence that the time tombs are opening soon as the anti-entropic fields around them are expanding and the Shrike is ranging further afield. So there's going to be a lot of nonsense science fiction jargon thrown at you in the beginning of this book, Danielle. All of it is somewhat important for later, so I'm sorry.
I'm trying to stay present, but already my brain's drifting.
I need you here for me. I can't let you get too far off my
so hard, everybody.
You can't just tune out and fall asleep on me.
I wasn't falling asleep. I was thinking about shrike birds.
They're pretty cool. I can't deny that. All right. So Meina Gladstone goes on to say that they sent a force, capital letter force, : lowercase space, So not Space Force, but Force Space Task Force from Parvati to evacuate people from Hyperion. But with a time debt of more than 3 Hyperion years, it might not arrive in time. So this is not explicitly said in the book, but I'm just going to lay it out here anyway, that the time debt is the difference in time it takes for you to travel someplace and the relativistic time dilation of that. So what it means is, this is probably not a good time to do this, is it?
I'm listening. Time
Basically,
debt.
When you travel at high speeds through these spacecraft at like ultra light speeds or faster than light speeds, it might take you a few weeks to get someplace, but in that same time, many years might have passed in standard time relative to people who are not on the ship with you because of, relativity.
Okay, so I need to catch up. So they're going on a pilgrimage. There's 6 people that are
7 total.
7 total that were supposed to go on this pilgrimage according to Meina
Gladstone.
Sure, Meina.
She's the CEO of Hegemony, Danielle. Get it right.
I couldn't even pronounce the word hegemony, so I don't know why you think I'm going to remember Mina's name.
Look, I might be pronouncing it right, but at least I'm consistent.
I won't be. And who's the main person?
The Consul.
Consul? Does he have another name?
Not that I know of yet.
Okay.
And so she's saying that they've sent a force space task force from Parvati to evacuate. No, what a sentence that is. To evacuate people from Hyperion, but they'll have a time debt of 3 Hyperion years. So it'll take them 3 years of Hyperion time to get there, even though it'll only take them a few weeks of actual travel at
Got it.
over light speed.
Why are they evacuating Hyperion?
Because the time tombs are opening.
I missed that part. Sorry. That was probably what I was thinking about the Shrike birds.
I was telling you that they were confirmed by the Church of the Shrike and the All Thing, and the evidence that time tombs are opening because the anti-entropic fields, remember those, around them are expanding.
Okay, yeah, but there was just a bunch of nonsense words, so that you expect me to remember literally any of that is crazy.
Danielle, there will be an exam after this podcast.
And look forward to next week's or week after summary.
2 weeks, Danielle. It's every other week. Good luck.
It's even worse.
I know. It's unfair to you, but there's really no other way to make this book work.
Gosh, that'd be awful. I can already feel it. I should take notes.
I gotta say, Danielle, the prologue is probably the worst for just sheer density of nonsense that's not explained. So once we get through it, we're not in clear waters, but we're at least better.
All right, hang in there, everybody. Didn't this just become a TV show or something?
There is something about them trying to make a TV show for it, and that's one of the reasons I was excited to get back to it, because, that's going to be one insane TV show, I really hope.
Yeah, because I remember hearing that and thinking that I thought the plot was so incomprehensible that I couldn't imagine it being a TV show.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it'll be amazing, I hope. Anyway, so the problem with the Force Space Task Force, I'm going to say that as many times as possible, is that they'll take them 3 Hyperion years to get there, which might not be in time to evacuate people. Also, there's an Ouster migration cluster of thousands of units that has been detected approaching the planet. But for what reason, to control Hyperion or to attack the world web, is unknown.
I have a question. Why would 3 years not be too late?
Well, they think the time tombs are opening. They're not exactly sure when in the next, X number of years, and they're hoping they can get there.
Oh, it hasn't already happened. They just know it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, they see the anti-entropic fields are expanding, which is indicative, apparently, of the time tombs opening.
Okay, and then there's some kind of possible scary force coming.
The Ouster migration, yeah.
Yeah, sure. That.
Yeah, again, none of this will be explained.
Just like the Ouster bird.
The Shrike, you mean, Danielle?
No, I'm just going to assume all the words in this are just actual animals.
Well, you're going to love the next one, because they're sending not only, so that they're worried that the Ousters are going to attack the world web, and they're sending, in addition to the evacuation fleet, a battle fleet with a Farcaster construction battalion that's going to meet up with the evacuation fleet on the way to Hyperion.
Okay.
The Consul concludes that the Farcaster is the only way to hold off the Ouster invasion and prevent them from uncovering the secrets of the time tombs, but committing so much resources to defending Hyperion could leave the rest of the world web vulnerable, or that the Farcaster that's established near Hyperion could be a vector for the Ousters to invade the world web if they seize it.
Do we know what the time tombs are yet?
No.
Okay. I didn't
I'll give you a hint, Danielle. I don't think I ever figured out what the time tombs were when reading these books.
Oh, no. They're tombs full of time.
I really don't know. It's so hard to remember, and there's a big time jump between the second and third book, so.
Great. Looking forward to this.
So the CEO goes on to tell him that the Templars are sending the tree ship Yggdrasil, or Yggdrasil, again, I don't know, to transport the pilgrims to Hyperion, and that among the 7 pilgrims are Saul Weintraub and Fedman Kassad, which I don't know who those people are, but apparently the Consul does.
They're well-known birds.
All of these people are well-known birds, yes. Saul Weintraub and Fedman Kassad are well-known birds. There also may be an Ouster agent among the pilgrims, and if the Ousters conquer Hyperion, the Consul should at all costs seek to seal the time tombs and eliminate the agent.
So there's like nobody closer to the Hyperion that could like go in there and seal the time tubes?
They're not sure they want to seal them, or that they can be sealed, I think. Like nobody knows what these things are, Danielle.
They just know that they're potentially opening?
They're potentially opening and are very powerful.
Oh, okay, sure.
I'll tell you something that I think I learned further on in the book that I barely remember is the time tombs are traveling back in time, and that when they meet up with our current time is when they open.
Okay.
So, like, we're going forward in time, they're going back in time. When those two timelines
are they sentient, the time tombs?
Boy, Danielle, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I've literally told you the sum total of my knowledge of the time tombs at this point.
Just want to know how they travel on their own is all I'm saying.
I don't remember if that's true or not. I could be making that up. It's been so long.
Okay, well, continue on. Sorry, I'm sure we haven't gotten very far.
We're almost to the prologue, Danielle, which is like 4 pages of the book.
Excellent.
All right, so the Consul is reluctant to head back, having already suffered some terrible experiences on Hyperion as the Consul of that planet, but he knew that none of the previous pilgrimages allowed by the Shrike Church had any survivors, apparently, or something. But eventually he decides, yeah, I'll go, and he powers up his ship and heads out to space for the rendezvous. End of prologue. I hope that cleared everything up.
Yes, clear as mud.
Okay, great. This book likes to like dribble out and world build like in media res, kind of.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It just makes you very lost for the first, book or two.
That's okay. I have a really high tolerance for being lost in books and TV shows, so it's okay.
Excellent. Then you're going to love this.
It won't mean I won't complain about it. I'm just saying I'll go with it.
I mean, fair enough. So, Chapter 1. The Consul awakes from cryogenic fugue to be greeted by 2 crew clones and a tall Templar. So, starting off strong with this chapter.
Clones? Like, are they real? Are they fake? Are they
I mean, they're
robots?
Real clones.
I don't know what kind of clones. Human clones?
They're just called crew clones. I'm assuming human, but, that's all I got.
How do you know they're clones? Because
he calls them crew clones in the book. I don't know.
They have distinguishing features? I'm just curious.
It doesn't elaborate. They're just called crew. That's like their designation.
Okay, well, all right.
The Templar, whom the Consul recognizes as Hegemony, the captain and true voice of the tree, tells him they're 5 hours from Hyperion, and the other pilgrims have assembled in the dining platform. So already we've jumped ahead basically 3 years of standard time and a few weeks worth of space travel time.
Sure, but I mean, that's the best way to do that, obviously.
Obviously, there's no other way to do that.
I'm just saying, other than spending time on the ship, how else would you spend that time? Jumping ahead makes sense.
I mean, they were all in cryogenic fugue while they were going quantum, so they're all unconscious anyway.
It made sense to me that you jump ahead 3 years.
It's a very convenient plot device that he can use to jump ahead any amount of time. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. Welcome to sci-fi.
It's kind of genius. So as they move through the tree ship, the Consul relays that these things are made of actual weirwood trees, which are a kilometer long, and they're turned into basically like living spaceships that are made space-worthy by erg-generated containment fields.
Erg-generated?
Erg-generated. What does that mean? I don't know.
I can't ask you for help with anything.
Not in this book, no. I think ergs are creatures, maybe? I don't remember. It's been so long. We'll learn more about the tree ships later. Okay. But they're basically massive trees in space, which I find just endlessly entertaining. So as they do a walk and talk, the Consul observes that since the tree ship dropped out of quantum and into sublight speeds, there should be thousands of passengers who have gotten up and are like touring the ship and exploring it, but it was empty except for the crew. And Het Madison reveals the pilgrims are the only passengers on the tree ship, so just 6 people on this massive ship. Mm-hmm. And tree ships are usually these large pleasure craft used for traveling by the rich between planets on a scenic trip that lasts a few months at best. But this one was committed to a 6-year total time debt trip to Hyperion to ferry 6 people. So it's a massive cost investment. And even if they use the tree ship as an evacuation craft with the help of the evacuation fleet, it's a very huge risk for the ship to enter a war zone because it's one of only 5 of these ships in existence.
Question.
Yeah.
Who first thought that they should put the trees in space?
I'm guessing the Templars did.
Just for fun. They were like, you know what we should throw in space? The trees.
The tree. Or maybe it was like the first true voice of the tree decided that was a good idea.
I just like the idea that they just like pick stuff up and we're like, let's see if it flies.
Look, if you can generate a containment field around any arbitrary object, wouldn't you put a house in space? There's no wind resistance, so like
exactly.
Anything can go through space.
I assume this was like drunken revelry and then it worked out pretty well, so they just kept using them.
Again, we may find the answers in a later book, but at this point, that's as good an explanation as any.
Perfect. I'm going with it. It's my headcanon.
So they reach the dining platform and are introduced to the other pilgrims. I'm going to give just a brief rundown of them. There's Father Lenar Hoyt, a priest of the old-style Christian sect known as Catholic, a young man in his 30s. There's Colonel Fedman Kassad, the butcher of South Brescia, a tall man dressed in forced black with no insignia.
Named after a bird.
Yes, after a bird, obviously. The poet Martin Salinas, a short, fat man with mobile features, and while he appears to be in his 50s, due to pulsing treatments, could be as old as 150 years.
What are mobile features?
Like, he's very expressive.
Sure.
His face changes a lot.
All right, let's go
as opposed to being static.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't write the description.
I didn't say it wasn't a good description. I was just...
It made sense
asking.
to me.
We've already established things that make sense to you do not necessarily make sense to me, and vice versa.
That's very true. There's Saul Weintraub, an old man holding a young baby, no more than a few weeks old, which is his daughter Rachel. He's a scholar, and apparently his daughter and he were briefly famous in the world web for reasons that are, right now, not revealed to us.
And he thought he'd just bring her along for fun?
We'll get into his story, Danielle, I believe me. There's Braun Lamia, a stocky detective, and it's also revealed that Het Mastine himself is the seventh pilgrim, as only a prime number group can make the Shrike Church-sponsored pilgrimage.
Yeah, you know, those darn rules.
Darn rules that I don't know if they made up or something. So as they sit to eat, Het Mastine shares that the Ouster fleet is only a few days behind them. And while Hoyt speculates that the Ousters may be non-violent if they take over Hyperion, Fedman Kassad states that they will raise every city on the planet and assault the Earth. Like, they're going to be totally destructive. And he clearly has some history there.
Mm-hmm.
So still, 4 hours or so away from orbit, they discuss how the Consul has volunteered to ferry them to the capital city of Keats once they arrive. And from there, they will start their several days journey across the planet to the time tombs. And they don't just land at the time tombs, because anyone who tries to take a spacecraft or some kind of shortcut to them, they will land just fine, but inevitably their ship will return automatically without them. It'll be empty, they'll be gone, and there'll be no trace of what happened to them.
Ooh,
I know. Spooky. Yeah, very Scooby-Doo. I love it. So with time to spare over the next few days, Saul Weintraub suggests that they get to know each other better, as their survival might depend on understanding each other and what kind of common thread has led them to be chosen by the church and the hegemony to make this pilgrimage, because there are millions of members of the Shrike Church who would love to do this pilgrimage, but these 7 people were chosen, and none of them are members of the Shrike Church, and all of them have various or no faiths. So there must be some other kind of common thread that ties them to Hyperion that makes them the chosen ones for this particular very important pilgrimage.
So this is when they start to play party games and freshman year games and get to know each other that way, I assume.
So Danielle, this first book is modeled on the Canterbury Tales, where the pilgrims will start telling each other their stories.
That's less interesting than a drinking game than Truth or Dare, spin the bottle.
If they played Pictionary or whatever, that'd be fun. But I'm telling you, he decided to go literary with it.
Bummer. Stupid Hyperion.
Hyperion could have been cool, man, but getting drunk and party. But no, you decided to go all Canterbury Tales on me.
Was a better way to get to know each other.
I mean, sure. I'm not someone who knows a lot about team building exercises. I'll take your word for it.
I've been to several team building exercises. None of them involved Truth or Dare, to be fair, but that's a good way to know your freshman colleagues in school.
So anyway, Saul suggests they all take turns sharing their stories to see if they can find a common thread, or at least pass the time.
Oh, 2 truths and a lie. That would have been a good one.
No, because you don't want to have any lies. I should also mention that the legend goes that when they meet the Shrike, one of them will have their wish granted and the others will die. So, good times.
Wait, what? Why?
The Shrike just loves killing, Danielle. It's a killing machine.
I'm so confused by the plot of this already.
The plot is these 7 pilgrims are going on a pilgrimage to the time tombs, which are opening and guarded by a monster called the Shrike.
And the Shrike. How do they know that the Shrike does the one wish, kill the others thing?
They don't. This is the legend so far.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I have no idea. This is what they said, Danielle. I don't know if it ever comes back into play. But since I don't know, I feel obliged to let you know in case it does.
Useless.
Me or the book?
You. And maybe the book.
That's true. Well, mostly me. I'm not doing this book any justices.
Okay.
While some object to sharing their stories, they all take a vote and decide to proceed, and they draw lots. And the Consul is going last, and he resolves that if it ever gets to his turn, he actually won't share his story. He'll just lie or get out of it somehow. But the first person on the list is the priest Lenar Hoyt. So Hoyt briefly leaves to retrieve some journals because his story involves another story.
So he has to tell that story to tell his story?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, what a boring lecture.
So now we begin the priest's tale. titled The Man Who Cried God. All right, so Lenar Hoyt was a young priest and recently ordained down in the Catholic world of Pacham, is how I looked this word up. It's Latin.
Is that right now? But or in the past, he was a young priest. He's older now. Okay.
He's 30 now, but when he was originally first ordained on the world of Pacham, when he was tasked with escorting the venerable Father Paul Duré to his exile on Hyperion. The Catholic Church had been in decline for some time as it existed on the outskirts of hegemony life, and Duré, he was being exiled for falsifying data from an archaeological dig so that he made it look like there was a Christian civilization on this planet that existed long before humans even left Earth, which might have been some way that could have been used to revitalize the Catholic Church in the world web.
Is this like set in the future or something?
Oh, massively in the future.
Okay.
Was that not? I mean,
no,
it's not
I
like
was just
Star
trying
Wars.
to no, it wasn't that. I was trying to figure out how like Christianity tied in that, like if it was a completely different world building or if it was based on some kind of current humanity.
No, so it's like this is definitely based on current humanity. The Catholic Church has been in decline as other religions have grown up as humans have gone to space. And there's a lot of religion in this book. I'm going to put out there right now that I am not making any comment on any religion. It's just I'm relaying what the book is saying.
Got it. That was the only part that I remembered from this entire series was something about all the
Catholicism.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
All the parallels to it. That was the only thing I remembered.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, Paul Duré had cooked up this plot to falsify an archaeological dig to help revitalize the church. He'd been caught and basically excommunicated and exiled to Hyperion.
Was that where they sent all the people who were exiled?
No, he decided to go to Hyperion as like he chose that as his exile location. You know, one of the places on the outskirts that was approved by the church because there was something there he wanted to study, which we'll get into right now.
That's a nice little exile. You get to pick where you go.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to comment too much on the church, but we know that a lot of priests that get caught doing bad things in the current Catholic Church are often sent to places that are not terribly bad.
I know. I'm glad to see it's changed a million years in the future.
So during the trip to Hyperion, which incurs a 4-year time debt for the priest and Hoyt, after only a few weeks of travel, Duré tells Hoyt he's going there to study the supposed lost tribe called the Bikura, all descended from the colonists of a crashed seedship from hundreds of years ago that were lost. It's also made clear that while Hoyt and most people now have implanted comm laws that connect them to essentially a galaxy-spanning internet called the datasphere, Duré uses an external comm lock because he's old. Also, again, I want to point out, this book was written in 1989, and boy, does it really get into the dangers of the internet, and I think it's very prescient.
Well, the internet's very dangerous. It's fair.
So Hoyt drops off Duré and turns around to head back, which is another 4 years of debt, so a total of 8 years round trip of debt. But once he arrives on Pacham, he's told that Father Duré has vanished for the last 4 years and has not been heard of, and so he volunteers to turn right around again and head back to Hyperion to go find Duré for another 8 years, another 4 years of travel.
I mean, what's time travel if it's while you're asleep? Who cares?
Yeah, just going back and forth. It's not even that he's, asleep for it. It's only like 5 weeks of travel for him, but it's 4 years in the relative to the rest of the universe.
Well, if you don't have any friends or family or anything, what does it matter?
Good point, Danielle. So after 7 months on Hyperion, he discovered the fate of Duré and found Duré's journals. And so the journals here are going to go into what happened to Father Paul Duré. And there's a lot here about Duré's journey where he is describing the planet and the different continents, so like Aquila and things like that. And I'm just going to sort of skip over most of that because it's interesting, but we do not have time to go into all the details of the geography of Hyperion. I'm sorry.
Are these the books that he brings forward or the journals?
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
So anyway, I'm going to skip a lot of the color and all of the insight to Paul Duré's thoughts as I just try to focus on a plot.
Okay.
So to get to the cleft in question where the Bikura supposedly are, Duré has to go through the flame forest composed of Tesla trees.
Just
gosh, I love this book.
Things.
It's like
every sentence is just nonsense.
It's so good. Isn't it great? Tesla trees. How badass does that sound? So the flame forest and the Tesla trees are active and impenetrable for several months, and then they go quiet for a few months and then back to being active. So when he finally arrives at this town, he gets a guide called Tuk to help him navigate the forest. So they trek through the forest, which is composed of Prometheus plants and phoenix and amber lambents, and they do see a few Tesla trees, which are these 100-meter tall trees with large bulges near their tops and radial branches. So one night, the forest basically explodes, where lightning starts striking the Tesla trees over and over again, and the energy that's accumulating in the Tesla trees, they basically soak it all up, and they release that gathered energy, hundreds of lightning bolts in seconds, basically just setting the forest on fire and causing all kinds of havoc.
So they killed themselves?
No. So Duré and Took are protected by a circle of arrestor rods, like lightning rods they've set up around their camp. But one of their pack animals panics and flees and immediately killed by lightning strikes, like dozens of strikes.
How come the Tesla trees don't die from their own lightning strikes?
Danielle, I do not have answers to these questions.
I mean, wouldn't they?
I don't know.
They're
Maybe
trees.
since they're the source of the charge, they're not the targets of the charge themselves, because you want to find the difference in charge.
Yeah, but if the forest gets lit on fire, they can't prevent themselves from being burned.
Maybe they're like fire resistant, like redwoods.
Maybe you should put those into space.
They're not big enough, Danielle. So basically, the arrestor rods protecting them, but they're not really designed to hold up for more than a few hours, so they barely make it through the night alive. And in the quiet morning, they quickly move camp out of the flame forest. And as they move, Duré notes how, in the violent storm, it helped create new life. So it's like a forest fire in the sense that all the ash and clearing of old growth made room for new life and new growth.
Sure, but not immediately. Do they see new life, like, right that second?
Yeah, like some of the phoenix plants or whatever start blooming immediately. Like, oh yeah, fire, great, I'm into this. So the next day, which is day 88 of his travel log, so I've skipped a lot, Duré wakes to find that Took has been killed. His throat slit in the night, and he has a vague recollection of hands caressing him, and specifically the crucifix he wears.
It was probably the Tesla tree.
The Tesla tree slit the guy's throat, yes, instead of using the lightning.
You don't know, Sam. They can apparently do anything.
They mostly do lightning, Danielle. I'll put it out there right now.
Well, you don't know. You can't remember the rest of the books.
Well, I do know what happened to Took because I'm about to tell you. So Duré panics, but eventually calms down enough to bury Took and go looking for the Bakura, though they find him first. A group of 30 or so of them find him, and he observes they are short, very bland looking, like featureless almost, hairless, and appear androgynous in crude brown robes that cover their entire bodies. All of them appear to be between 40 and 50 years old, and he also sees that they appear to be dull, quote-unquote, placid idiots.
If they're kind of featureless, how do you know they're between 40 and 50 years old?
I mean, that's just sort of what he's estimating based on their size.
Shenanigans.
Look, I don't know the whole detail of what they look like in person. He apparently can figure it out.
Just don't think so, but okay.
Not like featureless, they're just very bland featured. Like they're kind of forgettable.
Okay, sure.
So he talks to them through the translation function of his comm log, which is very convenient.
We love those.
Yep, and the comm log identifies their language as a corruption of archaic seedship English. So
Earth English.
Right. No, seedship English, Danielle. That's why they specified it here.
I know. This is the only book where you can say Earth English and it actually might make sense.
That's a good point. They should have taken a note from this. The Bakura ask him, or basically say, you are the man who belongs to the cross shape. And Duré confirms this, and they all genuflect to him before taking him by the arm and leading him to their very primitive village for an afternoon nap, which they do every day.
I mean, I wish I had an afternoon nap every day.
Oh, believe me, it's the best life. So over the next few days, Duré learns that the Bakura call themselves the 70 and appear very simple-minded, not answering a lot of his questions or answering with a lot of circular logic. Like he eventually asks if they have killed Took, and the one he calls Alpha says they did cut his throat, so he would die the true death. When asked why, Alpha says he died because they cut his throat, and asked why they cut his throat, they say was so that he could die, and so on. So their conversations go basically in circles.
That'd be frustrating quickly.
It's very frustrating. It's frustrating reading it, Danielle, I'll tell you what. When asked why they didn't kill him, they answer, you cannot be killed because you cannot die. You cannot die because you belong to the cruciform and follow the way of the cross. But other than that basic idea of cruciforms, they seem to have like no concept or connection to Christianity that he can determine.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot. I'm sorry, Danielle. This is going to be a lot of dumping.
No, it's okay. We're good. I'm following, mostly.
Mostly. I know you're trying very hard, which is why you're not saying much.
I'm trying. I'm focusing so hard.
Eventually, Duré learns that they have a routine. They go out foraging every 3 days, and every night they disappear down the face of the cleft, climbing down some vines, but they won't allow him to go down there after them. Otherwise, the Bakura have no interest, no industry, they have no relationships, they don't even seem to have a concept of property or homes. They basically just sleep wherever's convenient when it's time to sleep. They seem to be basically very dull and lack any kind of spark.
So are they like holding him captive?
No, but he can't leave because the Tesla forest, the flame forest, is completely active now, and it's absolute suicide to go back through it.
Okay.
They won't allow him to examine them with the medical equipment he brought with him, and they have an absolute taboo against nudity. All right, anthropology, kind of done. You fall asleep yet?
No, I wasn't falling asleep. I was thinking that there were also like 6 more stories to go, so anthropology is not done.
There are definitely 6 more stories to go, but not all of them concern the anthropology of the Bakura.
Sure. You say that now.
Actually, Daniel, I gotta tell you, there are only 5 more stories. It doesn't deal with one of the stories.
Okay.
That I recall.
Sketchy.
So the Bakura also have no names, no history.
Is this all relevant later?
Sort of. Duré finally asks to go on a trip down the cliff with them, but they say no, he's not of the 10. And if he tries it, they will slit his throat, and if he tries it again, they will kill him again.
But I thought he couldn't die. Because of cruciforms and crosses. I don't know.
Danielle, I'm building the mystery of this people here right now. So when I said they have no names, no history, no children, like he is perplexed by this because they seem very obsessed with this 10 number. So he asks them about like, well, when did you have children? And they don't really understand what that means. And eventually they say that one may return only when one dies. And Duré speculates that they only breed to replace a member to keep the exact same number of people in the tribe, the 10.
What if you had like twins or something?
Well, he doesn't really understand that because, like, for one, they're all basically the same age. So do they like breed at certain intervals to keep everyone in the same population? Clones, sure. He doesn't really think there's had cloning technology, but that's fine. He also then speculates that maybe they like killed the children if they're born and they don't need a replacement.
Sure, why not?
Or that they use some kind of weird contraceptive to keep the breeding at only specific intervals. Either way, he is very perplexed.
I mean, yeah.
But the important thing is that number 70 is the exact same number of colonists who crashed on the original seed ship.
Ooh, mysterious. Layers like an onion.
Layers like a Tesla tree. Keep it in universe, Danielle. One day, Duré decides to sneak down the cliff to see where they go every day when they climb down that cliff. And so while the whole tribe is off hunting on one of their 3-day foraging excursions, he climbs down. He returns and just scribbles some nonsense entries just beside himself with excitement, brimming with faith. And he finally relays in his journal that he went down the cliff and found a path and steps so worn as have to have been trotted by people for millennia, so millennia-old steps. Mm-hmm. Eventually he finds under an overhang, intricately carved double doors in the stone of the cliff, flanked by stained glass windows that aren't really made of glass, but made of some unknown material that kind of shimmers and moves with light, so like it's a swirling stained glass, not like a static stained glass.
Okay.
Inside, he finds a space larger than the great replica of the Basilica of St. Peter that's constructed on Patcham. So that replica holds 50,000 people, but the place he finds in this cave, in this cliff, is larger than that.
For all 70 of them.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's preposterously large. In the center is a massive altar, 5 meters square, with a giant cross on it. Duré falls to his knees and prays. This was the evidence of a pre-Earth Christian civilization that he'd been trying to fabricate earlier, but this time it's real.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, it's real, but whether or not it's pre-Christian faith or not is yet to be determined.
Are they ghosts?
Ghosts? You mean that the
70? Mm-hmm.
The 10 are ghosts?
Yes.
No, they're very physical people.
Are they immortals?
Danielle, they're very physical people. Let me get into this. So, he takes hollow recordings of this whole thing to like bring it back to the church and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, this is it. And he resolves to leave as soon as the flame forest quiet down so he can pass in like a month or two.
There's like a cycle to the flame forest?
Yeah, it's like a couple months they go up and then a couple months they're quiet. A couple months they go up and then a couple months they're quiet.
What is with the weird Tesla trees?
I mean, I want one in my house.
Do you?
I mean, it would certainly be a conversation piece.
You would die. The Tesla tree would remain.
I would put like a Faraday cage around it. It's fine.
Yeah, sure.
However, while bathing one day, one of the Bakura see him shirtless and freaks out. At first, Duré is like convinced that he's violated their taboo against nudity, but he's seized by the Bakura and they quickly strip him, and then they start discussing killing him since he's not of the cruciform. All must die the true death except the 10. Mm-hmm. And so they're about to beat him to death with rocks, and he holds up his crucifix and yells, I follow the cross. This causes them to hesitate, and they argue some more like, he follows the cross, but he's not of the cruciform. That circular arguments happen. And then Duré tells them that he went down to the basilica in the cliff, and he prayed at their altar, and he wishes to be of the cruciform. So the Bakura decide to discuss this and lock him up for 3 days while they discuss what to do with him. After 3 days, they haul him out, and they haul him in front of a bonfire they built on the cliff, where they burn all his clothes and equipment and give him one of their robes. And the only thing they leave him are his medical scanner and his diaries.
Do they kill one so that they're not 71?
No, not yet.
Give it time.
So they take him down the cliff, past the basilica, and further down still, all the way down, kilometers down this path, all the way to the base of the cliff where there's a river. In the wall of the cliff down there, near the river, is another opening. This one leading to Hyperion's labyrinth. So...
There's a labyrinth on Hyperion?
Yep. So Hyperion is one of 9 known labyrinth worlds, Danielle. Did you know that?
No. Why? Why would there even be one labyrinth world?
Well, there are 9 of them that are known so far, and they all have several things in common. One, they're all tectonically dead.
They all have labyrinths.
They all have labyrinth. These massive underground labyrinths composed of tunnels built many thousands of years ago for unknown reasons by unknown people using unknown technologies, like these meters long, perfectly square, smooth tunnels. And nothing has ever been found in a labyrinth that gives anyone clues as to why they exist or who built them.
So they think that the same people built all 9, theoretically.
And then they all basically look exactly, have the same kind of construction hallmark. So unless 9 different species decide to do it all independently.
You never know, Sam. Sci-fi.
Never know, but that's not their conclusion.
I just was clarifying for my own understanding why there are 9 labyrinth worlds.
I don't know why there are 9, Danielle. There just are.
Okay. Labyrinth. I do like a good labyrinth.
I know. I thought you'd be excited to see that there are plant-wide labyrinths
I'm excited
underneath the
about the
crust of these
labyrinth,
planets.
but why?
Because they're cool. Why is something not just be cool? It can just be cool.
That's true. So he has to go into the labyrinth? Does he have to survive the labyrinth to be one of the 70?
He has to fight the Minotaur, yeah.
There's a Minotaur?
No!
You can literally say anything, Sam, but I would believe you.
I told you this was Canterbury Tales, not Theseus. But we should be Minotaur. That'd be cool. Anyway, they lead Duré just inside this hole in the labyrinth. So this hole that's in the labyrinth is not natural. Like this was, broken into the tunnel. This wasn't intended for the labyrinth. And just inside, the labyrinth walls there are rough because they've been exposed to the elements and have started to erode. And once they get a little ways inside, so they're no longer seeing any light, all of the Bakura kneel and extinguish their torches, and the walls of the tunnel start to glow with hundreds of crucifixes that appear on the walls.
This book is so freaky.
Those crucifixes are all different sizes, some a few centimeters, some a few dozen centimeters, and they all appear to be organic, like living, like coral, essentially. He describes them as coral looking, living, and they're warm to the touch.
Creepy.
Yeah, very creepy. That's when Duré sees a Shrike appear out of the darkness. The Shrike is 3 meters tall, metal, covered in spikes from head to toe, like not just like pointy spikes that you might get from a Hot Topic belt, but like long, curved, like a thicket of spikes. With red eyes and strangely jointed limbs. It walks past the Bakura, and then it notices Duré, and it disappears and then reappears right next to him with its spiked arms around him like in a hug.
And it's like, boo!
Well, not really. It just vanishes. Poof. Gone.
It's the Minotaur.
It is the Minotaur of the labyrinth. That's why I'm so excited for the Minotaur, Danielle. So then it vanishes without a trace, and the Bakura rise, and Alpha takes a crude thong, so like a piece of string, to be clear, and ties it around one of the crucifixes he peels off the wall, like a few centimeters across, and hangs that around Paul Duré's neck.
So did these crucifixes grow on the wall, or did somebody put them all on the wall?
They grow.
Weird.
Yeah.
Don't like that.
No. They leave, but as they're climbing the kilometers back up the path, Duré passes out, and they presumably carry him back up to the top of the cliff, because the next thing you know, he wakes up 2 days later, and he goes to take a bath, and that's when he realizes he can't remove the cruciform.
Ew, creepy.
His skin has grown around. It's like grown into his body, into his chest on his sternum.
This is his fault for saying he wanted to be one with the cruciform.
I know. I mean, really, he asked for this. So it's embedded in his chest, and he can't peel it off his body. He rushes to scan himself with a med scanner, and he sees that there are fibrous tendrils radiating out from the cruciform all throughout his body and into his brain even.
Gross.
But the med scanner shows that all of that, including the cruciform, is his flesh. It's all his DNA.
Mm-hmm. Can he leave the planet, or would he die?
What?
Is he part of the planet now? If he leaves the planet, is he gonna have
Danielle,
issues?
We're about to get into this. So over the next few days, he learns that if he tries to leave the cleft area, the cruciform will give him massive pain, like a heart attack, until he turns back. So he's basically stuck there now.
Bummer.
Now with the cruciform, the Bakura sort of let him examine them, and they have no genitalia to speak of, just nothing at all. They are completely Ken doll down there.
So they don't get to have new babies.
Yeah, no new babies. And that's when Alpha dies.
Randomly?
He slips off a cliff and tumbles to his death.
Is that fated because I have to have 70?
Oh, Danielle, no, it's not.
Just curious.
Duré retrieves the body, and the Bakura just seem unconcerned with the death of Alpha. They take the body down to the basilica and leave it before the altar, and they all take off, but Duré stays to watch. And what he sees in the next 3 days is freaky. The cruciform seems to break down the body of Alpha. He describes a time lapse of decomposition.
Mm-hmm.
And the remains of Alpha's body are then reconstructed by the cruciform, like the flesh flowing to reform the body, and it recreates him over the course of the 3 days.
Of course it does, because everything happens in 3 days.
Yeah, right? The recreation isn't quite perfect. It looks like Alpha, but also a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So the book doesn't get into this, but my speculation, at least at this point, is that it's like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. Every time the cruciform resurrects somebody, it gets less and less human-like. It's like a less and less good of a job of doing it.
So they do basically live forever.
Oh, yeah.
Reiterations of the original 70.
Yes. They are the original 70. They have existed here for the last 400 years, undying.
What happens when they get to so far beyond that they're not even remotely human?
That's a really good question, Neil. Maybe we'll find out later books.
Maybe, because apparently we travel in time.
So he and Alpha return to the village, and no one seems to be concerned about oh yeah, cool, just a normal thing that happens.
It would be.
So the cruciform does grant eternal life, but at the cost of your humanity. So Duré tries to cut the thing out of himself using a sharp rock, but when he tries it, the cruciform seems to hate pain, and so it causes enough pain that he passes out long before he would have normally.
It's a Tesla tree.
The cruciform is a Tesla tree?
Yeah, it causes the issues, but doesn't have its own issues. It can't be struck by its own lightning. It causes pain as you're trying to cut it out and cause it pain.
Well, I think actually it's causing him to pass out. It doesn't actually cause the pain necessarily, but it causes pain when you try to leave, so that you can't leave.
Yep, but you can't cause it pain. Tesla tree.
Right, it doesn't let you. Oh no, it's totally a parasite. It doesn't want that to happen. And so he also observes that another Bakura, it breaks its legs. One of the other Bakura breaks its legs, and the cruciform seems to knock it out. It pumps a bunch of endorphins into the guy so it doesn't feel pain, is sort of unconscious. But eventually, after a couple of days, the other Bakura just kill the guy and let the cross recreate him, which seems to be an easier way to deal with the problem than to try to have his leg heal on its own with all that pain going on.
That's an intense way to fix a broken leg, but okay.
I mean, if death means nothing to you, and it would take you a couple of days to repair your entire body, as opposed to just waiting the weeks it would take to make your leg better.
Sure. If you've lost the sense of humanity and don't realize that you're losing more humanity by doing so, that makes sense. Yeah,
exactly. It makes a kind of creepy sense, right? So the last death that he sees is where one of them falls out of a tree and breaks his neck, but it lands between two fire mantis nests. And the fire mantis, they strip the flesh bare, leaving nothing but a skeleton behind and the cruciform affixed to the sternum of the skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
Duré briefly thinks oh, that's the end of it. There's no way that guy's coming back. You can't make matter out of nothing. Conservation of mass. Not going to happen.
What would have happened if he'd gone and take the cruciform off the body and thrown it away or something?
You mean the dead body?
Yeah. I know it's attached to the sternum, but if you pried it off or cut it off.
So what happens is the other Bakura, they go and retrieve the cruciform off of the skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
And later he sees that there's another Bakura that has two cruciforms in their flesh. And so what he speculates is that new Bakura is going to start to grow basically to twice its size. Then it will die. And two new Bakura will be created from the remnants, recreating the one who didn't have enough flesh to begin with that died originally.
Will it just be two of the same guy then? Or will it be...
No. Basically, it's hosting the old crucifix on your body.
Right.
And then when you die, the old crucifix will recreate its body that it had originally, and your crucifix will recreate your body.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. Why not? Wild, right? Duré is not happy. He's I am done with this cruciform.
That's what he gets for wanting to be part of it.
I know. Always read the fine print, right?
This is his own fault.
So Duré resolves to set off into the forest to escape. He says, I can handle the pain more than the cruciform can. I kind of push through it. But as he does that, eventually he seems to black out as he gets far enough away, and then he'll wake up crawling back towards the cleft. So he's basically 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. He never makes it any further than he can initially. So Duré finally decides that, I guess I'm stuck here. He decides to build a chapel, I guess to keep himself busy.
Mm-hmm.
And while mining stone for the chapel, he finds the arrestor rods, which the Bakura had stolen but not destroyed.
The what? The rods? Oh, the ones
the
that
arrestor rods.
That help
the lightning
with the
rods.
lightning.
Yeah, the lightning rods.
Mm-hmm.
So after finishing the chapel and spending 438 days on his mission, his last log entry is about him setting off one more time into the forest. And I didn't go into a lot of detail about how they describe a lot of the planet of Hyperion, but that's the end of Paul Duré's story.
So he goes off into the trees.
That's the last entry in his log. He's like, I'm going off tomorrow. Wish me luck.
But he can't make it that far, can he? Because of the crucifix thing?
It's cruciform, yeah, who knows? So as he finishes the journal, Hoyt tells the others that he arrived in Hyperion 8 years after Duré was left there. And he followed Duré, eventually hiring 4 skimmers to fly past the Tesla forest to the cleft. Although one of them is destroyed by the Tesla trees as they fly over the forest. He finds the Bakura and recovers Duré's medical data and journals, and then he finds Duré's body, burned to a crisp by Tesla trees and decomposing. Virtually nothing left. So the local leader of the nearby town was like, oh, those Bakura, they gots to go. And so he uses
there's still 70 of them? Still 70. Did he get reanimated?
Duré?
Yeah.
No, his body is a massive charcoal.
That's what happened with his cruciform?
I guess it was destroyed by the Tesla trees.
So how did they get 70 again?
He was 71. They always had 70.
No, yeah, they had 71. I forgot. The other ones got reanimated. This is very perplexing.
That was the whole purpose, Danielle. The whole point is they always have 70. They have 70. That is their thing.
Except when they had 71.
But he wasn't really one of them. So the local leader of the nearby town is like, the Bakura gots to go. And so he used shaped nuclear charges to basically wipe out the entire cleft, blow up everything. And everyone has sort of kept the story of what happened to Paul Duré secret because how insane. Like, if there was an immortality granting cruciform on a planet, somebody would want that and try to make a business out of it.
Sure, but it's not like you last as yourself. You last as a weird shadow of yourself.
I'm sure someone would think it'd be worth it.
They don't seem to have any kind of motivation. So at some point, whatever your motivation was to last forever would disappear from you, it seems to suggest.
Maybe they think they can find a way around it.
Okay, you can't.
Okay, I guess you know all about these things, Danielle. The expert on Hyperion. Tesla trees, I don't buy those. Cruciforms, on board with them being sapping humanity, no problem.
All right, that's the story.
So after Hoyt finishes the story, they are told it's time to head to the planet, so they all go to the Consul's ship. But Hoyt doesn't show up.
You know what would gone faster? Them getting to know each other? Party games, Sam. They got through one of the people. They're like, let's get to know each other. They get through one.
One story in 4 hours. I mean, that is true.
They at least know a little bit about each other if they had played games.
Well, on the other hand, Danielle, I don't think a party game would have revealed this insane story.
No, that's not the point, though. That's those things come naturally if you do the party games first. At least then you'd have a good sense of strengths and weaknesses.
Never have I ever found the corpse of my reincarnated friend.
See, this whole story could have been told in a different manner, Sam. You don't know.
I don't think that play Pictionary or whatever, or Two Truths and a Lie would come up with this particular, oh yeah, I'm going to share the story about the reincarnation and eventual horrible death of my friend.
It would in a sci-fi novel full of pilgrims to Hyperion.
Well, you can write the sequel.
The abridged version.
The abridged version of Hyperion where they all play party games.
I'd read that.
You would write that.
People would read it.
I basically told you the ultra abridged version anyway.
That's true. My version was more fun.
Well, we're about to get into more of it. So Hoyt doesn't show up to the Consul's ship. So the Consul goes to fetch him, and he finds him writhing on his knees in his quarters. And FYI, the carpet is made of grass because tree ship.
Of course.
It's great. I love that detail. So Hoyt manages to gasp, "The injector malfunctioned, please." And the Consul quickly takes the injector that was lying in next to him and loads a new cartridge of ultra morphine into it. Because what's better than regular morphine, Danielle?
Ultra morphine.
Ultra morphine, that's right. I love it so much.
Super ultra morphine.
No, Danielle, let's not get too crazy. Mega morphine is still a little ways off. But before injecting to Hoyt, he forces Hoyt to tell him the rest of the story. He's like, tell me the rest of the story before I give you this. Tell me the truth.
That's not nice.
Well, he's not a nice guy, Danielle.
Did he take cruciform?
So Hoyt eventually says that the skimmer wasn't destroyed by the Tesla trees. It was actually forced down into the cleft, and the Bakura killed his companions because they did not wear the crucifixes. One of those companions was the wife of the local leader guy, which is one of the reasons he basically wiped them off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what they get, I guess.
So the Bakura told him about the way of the cross and about the son of the flames. And they lead him into the flame forest where he finds a big Tesla tree where about 4 meters up, Duré had used the arrestor rods to crucify himself on the tree. Like he drove them through his ankles and his wrists and his hand, and so he's now crucified himself to this tree on lightning rods.
Does he rather die than have a cruciform?
Basically, his I thought was pain drives off the cruciform. There's nothing more painful than being electrocuted or burned to death over and over again. And he had spent the last 7 years being repeatedly electrocuted and burned to death, only to be resurrected by the cruciform over and over again.
Bummer.
His body was charred, unrecognizable, flesh and eyelids burned off, but he was still alive. And when Hoyt approached, finally the cruciform fell off, and Duré smiled and died a true death.
Because Hoyt's magical?
So the local leader did still come and rescue him and did kill the Bakura with nukes, but now Hoyt was suffering from intense pain that kept getting worse to the point where only ultramorphine can help. So the Consul quickly injects him and he passes out. And under his robes, the Consul sees the cruciform. Of course.
Told you.
Yeah, of course. And he turns the priest over, and on his back he sees another cruciform, presumably Duré's.
How would he know to put them on?
I don't think he did. I think they were put on him by the Bakura.
Crazy.
So the Consul carries Hoyt back to his ship because he's unconscious, and he thinks about how familiar this sensation is to when he used to carry his now dead son to bed. End of chapter 1.
That's a nice ending.
Right? What a way to go! What an ending. So I'm going to be kind of short with these, obviously, because I think there's no need to make giant chunks out of them. There's already enough insanity in each part of these. I don't need to try to cram more in.
That's fair.
But there you go. There is the priest's story from Hyperion.
That was a story.
Yeah. Freaky, right?
How is it even worse than I remember it being?
How is that? What do you mean worse? Like scarier?
Yeah, creepy. I don't know.
It's very creepy. Like, it is very spooky.
Yeah,
like, oh,
don't
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, you are forced. It's like the curse of immortality.
Like
but
all
also,
the bad parts of immortality, none of the good parts.
Yeah, it's like this weird devil's bargain, which is ironic because it's a cruciform, but I'm not getting into that.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, no, this book is extremely creepy, and it only gets weirder from here, Danielle.
Did they destroy the temple when they nuked the whole area? Probably not.
You mean the basilica?
Yeah.
I presume so.
But you don't know.
I don't know.
There could be a wall full of crucifixes.
Cruciforms?
Cruciformy crucifixes.
Crucify.
Crucify.
No, that's a verb. Never mind.
They could probably be the plural of cruciformi.
Cruciformula.
Okay, we're done.
We apologize, everybody out there. But yeah, no, it's like, this is the opening salvo of this book, Danielle. Like, after that prologue and this story, you're like, oh, I'm into this.
Or not.
Or not. But I don't know. I find it intriguing. It's definitely like, oh, how can it get weirder than that? Well, we're going to find out.
Well, it certainly does, if I recall correctly.
I know, which is really impressive.
It is really impressive. That's super weird.
This is like the most straightforward of the stories, I think, if I recall correctly.
Oh, that's concerning.
I know, right? And I left out a lot to try to streamline it.
You did a great job. Well done, you.
Thank you. I do recommend people check this out because, as always, there's so much more in the actual writing than just the story I'm telling. The book does a lot of, as you saw from the prologue you read, a lot of really intense atmosphere and description, and has, a bunch of visual stuff. It's very different than just me like, oh, this is what happened.
Yeah, if you ever want to understand the many layers of the Sam and Danielle friendship, you could read Hyperion and understand it better, I think. It'd be like the layers of a Tesla tree.
How would reading Hyperion make them understand our friendship better, Danielle?
Because you just have to imagine that I had to sit through hours and hours and hours of instant messaging of Sam telling me about this book. And you'll better understand both Sam and me.
Danielle had to. And then I have to sit through hours and hours of your K-drama retellings.
You know what? I don't feel bad about that at all.
I didn't say you should, but there's no reason you should try to shame me for telling you about Hyperion once 10 years ago.
It was a really, really long recap.
It was. It's a really long book, Danielle. There's a lot going on. It's insane.
Well, there we have it.
It's actually bananas.
Watch some Korean dramas, read Hyperion. You've got it covered.
That pretty much is our friendship in a nutshell. It's true. I really hope that somewhere in the middle of my retelling of the Hyperion series, the TV show comes out and it's completely like nutso, because that'd be so much fun.
It would be fun.
I would make you watch it.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Well, I want to hear, Danielle, what you think's going to be. Let me tell you the name of the next story, and you can try to tell me what you think it's going to be about.
I don't even remember who these characters are.
The next story is called The Soldier's Tale, The War Lovers.
Soldier's Tale, The War Lovers? Who's telling it?
Fedman Kassad.
Oh, yeah, the bird.
No. Well, yes, they're all birds, Danielle. That does not narrow it down.
I don't want to remember them in my head, though.
I like how you took the one vector, the Shrike is a bird, and you're like, I'm going to run with that. That's my anchor for, like, I need that anchor to keep me sane in this story.
I often do that with your stories, though, because otherwise I don't know what's going on.
And I don't know if that's my fault or not, but I'm sorry.
What was it called again? The War Lover. See, I can't remember the title.
The Soldier's Tale, The War Lovers.
Was he in some kind of, like, epic space battle?
I don't know, Danielle. I haven't read that far yet.
You've read it before.
Yeah, but Danielle, do you think I can remember this insanity clearly? I just remember, like, vague notions.
Do they all, like, have different planets and stuff that they're going to talk about that somehow will tie in to the final product?
There are going to be a lot of different planets named in this book, and they may all tie in to Hyperion. There's all going to be some kind of relationship to Hyperion. They're all going to tie in somehow. It's going to be very complicated.
I think he was part of a time war.
Time war?
Yeah, something to do with time.
Let's do the time war again?
Let's do the time war again, yes. Just a step to the left, to the past.
And then it's a bomb to the right.
Yes, they took... I don't know. I just think there's a time war involved.
I love it, Danielle. I really can't wait to see what's on to tell you about it.
Pretty sure it's the plot.
All right. Well, I don't know if anyone out there has as much antipathy towards Hyperion as Danielle does, but...
And Tesla trees.
Tesla trees are the things that really bugged you the most about this part, wasn't it?
It didn't bug me. I'm just curious how they protect themselves from their own fire-causing lightning bolts.
They use the lightning.
Right,
it's
to
of
burn
the tree.
down the forest. So they have to be redwoodian, as you mentioned.
Yeah, or I mean, being fire retardant is fine, but I also think, like, if they're charged in a certain way, like positively charged or negatively charged, they're going to repel lightning bolts.
Sure.
So
I'm not really, like, concerned that they're not struck by their own lightning. I completely buy that. I'm concerned that they're not struck by the fire that they create.
Yeah, maybe some of them do die, Danielle, but most of them survive. Who knows?
I certainly don't.
They're hundreds of meters tall, 100 meters tall.
Do Tesla trees come back?
I don't know.
I hope so.
Good to know.
It's the only thing I'm going to remember for the next time we go through this.
Of these 4 books, Danielle, I remember like 3 scenes.
Oh, dear.
And none of them are useful. So everyone out there, get ready. I hope you enjoy the start of this insanity, and it only gets weirder from here, I promise. And I hope you stick with it, because I'm really excited to see how this goes.
And if you don't want to stick with it, you can listen to my weeks.
Yeah, you can make me feel bad about myself. That's fine.
I'll throw in some K-dramas for fun.
Well,
who doesn't love a good Korean drama?
Yeah, that's true. You can always stick with Danielle, and you can write me letters about how much you hate my stuff I do. That's fine.
Maybe I'll do a Korean drama series in between your Hyperion.
We'll, like, interleave a K-drama series of, like, 20 episodes with my Hyperion. Oh, yeah. That's going to, like, completely narrow our demographics down.
It'll be a really interesting season for us, Sam.
I have no idea how this is going to go, Danielle. This may be a mistake, but we're going to try it out, see what happens.
It's going to be great. If I have to do any 2 or 3 parters, they're going to have to be interwoven between Hyperion now. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, that's absolutely true. Maybe I'll need a break. Who knows? Maybe you'll need a break.
That's certainly true.
All right, well, tune in 2 weeks to hear Danielle recap what I just told her, which will be a lot of fun.
Which will be literally the most terrible thing you've ever heard in your entire life.
I can't wait. That's one of my favorite parts about this
birds.
New format. There's a bird. All I remember is that there's a bird, and I'm really upset that you knew what that bird was. I can't believe how angry you were that I knew what a Shrike was.
You said it like it was a normal thing to know, and I listeners, if you knew what a Shrike bird was prior to this, please let me know.
No, that's totally fair. That's a totally fair point. Actually, why don't you can do 2 things. You can write in and tell Danielle 1 of 2 things. Either 1, how much you love Shrike, because that's cool. Or 2, how the Tesla trees work. Maybe solve that mystery for her, because I certainly can't.
Yes, please do.
If you want to do that, you can reach us at bookretorts.com.
You can also tweet, Instagram, or Facebook us at bookretorts.
And if you like what we do, somehow, and want to support more of it, you can do so at patreon.com/bookretorts.
Patreon!
And until next time...
You got mad at me last time because I said book retorts instead of Patreon.
Now you're doing both, huh?
Be enthusiastic about both the things, as I said then.
You're a great hype person, Danielle. I appreciate that.
Go us.
All right. Well, until next time, I guess avoid Hyperion. Apparently people going there has bad things happen to them.
Or Tesla trees.
Yeah, don't get struck by lightning. That'd be bad.
Were the Tesla trees on Hyperion?
Yes.
Oh, man. The recap's gonna be terrible.
The whole story of Paul Duré and the Bakura took place on Hyperion.
I forgot that immediately.
There are a bunch of continents. Like one was named after the horse, one was named after an eagle, one was named after a bear. There's like Ursus, Equus, and Aquilus.
You didn't tell me that.
I didn't tell you that. That's
okay.
stuff I left out.
It's like, wait a minute.
Those are all the details that I left out about like the geography and the names of all the continents and how like they have official names and unofficial names because who cares?
Who cares?
I mean, it's really interesting in the story itself. It adds to the flavor, but like I don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. You don't want to hear that, do you?
No, we've already heard too much.
Ouch. All right. Well. Gee, I guess I'll just go now, Danielle. Thanks.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody. We love
Bye.
you.
Not me, apparently.
We don't love Sam.
No.
Just the listeners.
Oh.
Poor Sam.
All right.
Life's hard.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody. That's Sam.
Everyone can see how cruel you really are in this episode, Danielle.
That's okay. They've heard it before.
All right. I think we're done there. We don't need any more outros. We're done. Here we go. Hello, and sorry. I'm still hoarse from the wedding.
Excuses.
I mean, it's not an excuse, it's facts. This is going to be extra special today, because I've been hoarse for all weekend.
You probably talked a lot and yelled a lot.
It was very loud. It's true.
Your family's very loud, so that seems unsurprising.
Yeah, exactly. So none of this is surprising.
Not a single one of the people in your family is quiet.
Yeah, I know. It's a real thing. All right, take two.